Hey everybody, this is Jeremy Siskin. I'm the author of things like Playing Solo Jazz Piano, the Jazz Piano Fundamental Series, and the Solo Standards for Piano series. Today's video is a little bit different. As you can see, this has a little PowerPoint. This is actually a presentation that I'm going to be doing for the National Conference for Keyboard Pedagogy. And as you might glean from the title, that's a conference for piano teachers. So I'm going to be teaching them how to teach their beginning students. With that said, these are, I'm basically going to be demonstrating lessons that I would recommend the teachers teach. So hopefully they're useful for you, even if you're not a piano teacher. So that's the idea here. And these are lessons, designed for beginners, people who really don't know too much yet about jazz. So if you're a more advanced player, maybe this is going to be interesting to you because you might be teaching somebody, or maybe it's not the video for you. But let's dive in to 6 blues improv lessons for beginners. Can you repeat after me? 2, 3, do, do, do. Do, va, do, do. Do, bo, dee, bo, do. Do, do, you, do. Do, do, de, do. Do, bo, do, da, do, do. Do, bo, do, va. Do, bo, do, be, do. Bo, de, bo, do, do. Do, be, bo, do, da. Do, de, do. Do, do, da. All right. Now, if you'd like to, I'd like for you to go to your instrument and do not play. Do not press a note down on your instrument. What I want you to now to do is to sing, once again, what you've heard from me, and tap as you're singing on which notes that you think I might be singing. Now, I'm going to be starting and ending each of my phrases on this C. You could use middle C. And I'm only going to be using these 4 notes. So no playing, singing, and then tapping. And here, I'll do it with you on my piano. Do, do, do. Do, ba, do, do. Do, de, do, da. Do, da, do, do, da. Do, bo, do, wa. Do, bo, do, da. Do, wa, ah. Do, ba, dee, da. Bo, do, wa, do, do. Bo, do, wa, do, do. Do, da, do, do. Do, 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 da. Bo, do, wa, do. Bo, do, wa, do, do. Bo, ba, bo, bo. Bo, do, bo, dee, ba, do, do. Dee, ba, do, do. All right, good. And now, finally, I'll actually leave that slide up. You can play on the piano. If you can multitask, playing and singing is ideal, but I understand that multitasking can be hard. So we'll do one last round, going through about 7 or 8 phrases. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. Do, da. Do, ah, Da, da. Da, da, do, da. Da, da. Do, de, ba. Da, da. Do, 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 da. da da, do ah ah, da da, ba de ba do do. All right, shake it out. So I specifically went through this 3-part pattern. Singing, and notice that I didn't give you any notes, any scale, any information until we were done singing, because I really wanted you to just be engaged from an ear oral perspective and not from an intellectual perspective, wondering what scale, what notes, what chord progression, what key. I didn't want you to worry about any of those things. The next step was tapping, right? And a few things I wanted you. So why do we do tapping? The reason is that as soon as we start touching that piano, my experience is we get obsessed with whether we're playing the right note or not. And so tapping allows us to start to ask the basic questions. Is the note going up or down? What is the rhythm? Without worrying about, did I get it right? Did I get the right answer? Is my, did I play a wrong note? Is it going to sound bad? Are people going to laugh at me? So that tapping, for me, is this really important middle step. Now notice when we were tapping, I only gave you a total of 4 notes, and I told you exactly where we were starting, right? So the idea is to take the guesswork out. The idea is not for this to be an ear challenge. The idea is to start connecting some rhythms, some phrasing, some scale elements to, our conception of the instrument. And then, of course, last we did some playing. And hopefully after you've spent some time tapping, you're in a better mindset to play. Maybe you're feeling confident about those notes. One thing I want to show you that I demonstrated is, I gave you these 4 notes here. And I put C, more or less, in the middle. 2 reasons to do that. One is that we're always coming back to C, so we're not doing a lot of leaping. And then I'm trying to get the student's mind really focused on C as the home base. So we're starting on C, and 90% of those phrases also came back to C. And then every time we went to F, if you were actually watching me, I stood on my tiptoes to give people a hint of, we're going a little higher, right? And let me show you how I might present the blues scale if we were going to go on to a next step, right? So instead of having just a scale, right, starting on the tonic, moving up from that, this is the C blues scale, but I'm showing the student and myself what I can reach in a single hand position. By hand position, I mean I'm keeping my thumb planted on C, and then from there, I can reach down to B flat and G, and I can reach up, honestly, to 5 notes. So I can play that whole scale without worrying about, these things that trip us up, like crossovers and cross unders, and having to remember, what's the finger position as we go here and there. Trying to remove as many barriers as I can. So a next step here would be to add these 2 notes, but don't add them too quickly. There's no rush. You could do so much with just those first 4. So that was our first lesson, a way to get into this feeling of the blues and the blues scale. Now, I was hopefully already giving you a lot of rhythmic inspiration through my articulation and through the rhythms that I chose. But I want to show you how we might get rhythmic inspiration from 2 of the greats of jazz piano and jazz history and apply these to the blues form. So we're going to start with this man, Duke Ellington, one of the greatest pianists and composers of all time, and the simplest melody that he ever composed is called C Jam Blues. So let's try this 3-part call and response one more time with C Jam Blues. Boo, that's a G. To listen and repeat after me. Do 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 dit. Your turn now. Do dit. Do dit. Do dit. do it. My turn again now. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Your turn, ready, and do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Okay, this song is called C Jam Blues. You can hear it has two notes. I'll tell you that they're a G and a C. Starts on a G. And now I want you to tap it. Okay, we'll do it together. I'll play some chords for you so you can hear the harmonic context. So again, it starts on a G and goes to a C. Only tapping, not playing. Don't you dare touch that instrument. I'll come through this YouTube screen. You won't like it. Here we go. Do, 1, 2, singing, tapping. Do, 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 do. 1, 2, again, and do it. But do it, do it, do it. One more time, and do it. Do it, do it, do it. Let's do it one more time. So that was a blues form. It has that melody happen 3 times. Sing it again, and if you can, listen for the way that the harmony is changing during the blues form. Singing and tapping. 2, ready, and do it. Do it, do it, do it. 1, 2, ready, and do it. Do it, do it, do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. Okay, now playing this on one hand isn't hard, it's 2 notes. On the other hand, it actually requires specific articulation, and this is a great learning opportunity for you / your students. This do-dit that we keep saying over and over requires articulation that I call a push-off. This is like a 2-note slur for jazz, but it's a lot more aggressive than a 2-note slur for classical music. So what you want to do, and I'm going to demonstrate here on my arm, is that for the first note, you're going to be pressing down. You're going to stay in the key bed, release the key just enough to come back up, and then spring off. Do-dit, 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 do-dit. And same thing as you're changing notes, it's a matter of springing off that second one. Holding that first one, I cut under with my elbow, and I spring off the second one. I know, it's a lot of work for 2 notes. Try tapping it with me on your arm. You want to get in there, get into that flesh of the arm for that first note. 2, 3, 4. Do-dit, 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 do-dit. It's a great jazz articulation. Again, and do-dit, 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 do-dit. I want you again, and do-dit, 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 do-dit. All right, you're ready to put it on the piano. You could choose any octave that you like. I'm going to play it just above middle C here. I'm going to play chords in the left hand. You don't need to play chords in the left hand, okay? 1, 2, ready, and do-dit, do-dit. Good, you could be aggressive with the second note. Do-dit, 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 do-dit. This is an extremely important articulation in jazz. We use it a lot when we're playing chords. We go. Do you hear how I'm doing that push-off articulation? Very common. All right, we've got the Duke. Now it's time for the count. Not that one. There's my humor. Count Basie. So you might need a way to measure how much space you're leaving between do-dit, 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 and the next one. And we can play chords in what we call the Count Basie rhythm. Now this rhythm is gleaned from the end of so many tunes featuring Count Basie, in which he uses this ending, famous ending, like, Fly Me to the Moon, among many others. 1, 2, 2. Right, this is kind of a classic jazz ending. I'll play it one more time. 1, 2. So we can take that rhythm and we can use it to play chords, and we can use it as a nice measurer of space. So I'm going to suggest let's learn a really fancy jazz voicing. This is going to go with a C7, and the notes from bottom to top is not going to include C. It's going to be E, A, B flat, and D. I'll say it one more time. E, A, B flat, and D. I'm not going to be able to do this in the presentation, but I'll show you here. E, A, B flat, and D. So we're going to play this in the Count Basie rhythm. I want you to listen twice, and then you can play along. So 3, 4, 1, 2. Again, 1. Now you. 1, 2. 3, 4, 1, 2. Good. So it's kind of a funny rhythm because it doesn't have a chord on beat 1. We rest until beat 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. But this is a great rhythm in jazz, and sometimes jazz musicians talk about getting these chords to get just in the right place by crunching their abs. I know that sounds crazy, but we're going to get a little ab workout. I want you to play this Count Basie rhythm, and every time you play a chord, you're going to do a little ab crunch. 1, 2, This is how I got my rock hard abs. There's a joke. So let's try it. If you want to say each time, let's say 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, So here's a challenge. Let's see if we can put Duke Ellington and Count Basie together. And that Count Basie rhythm is going to start right after your last note of C jam blues. So listen. Want to try it? I'm going to play bass for you so you can hear the harmonic context. So 1, 2, ready, and do, 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 bo, do, 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 again, and do, do. These are great rhythms, both that Duke Ellington CJ and blues rhythm and the Count Basie rhythm, to get some jazz articulation and syncopation deeply internalized. And notice I showed you a physical trick for both. We had the push-off articulation and we had our ab crunching with the Count Basie rhythm. Now you might be wondering, how can I just play the same chord each time with that Count Basie rhythm? But if we look through this blues form, we see that in the second half of each phrase, we're always on C7, right? This is kind of the concept of the blues form. There's these 3 phrases. The first one, we're home. The second one, we go to 4 and come back home. The last one, we do a cadence, and then we come back home. So this is a nice way to get your student playing a fancy pro-sounding jazz voicing, and they don't have to worry about changing it for now. I do recommend at some point that you teach your student about this blues form, and this C-jam blues form is a really great place to start. A nice way to get oriented is to play simple boogie woogie, and what I suggest doing is playing quarter notes, always with the root of the chord on bottom, and alternating between the 5th and the 6th. So for instance, for C7, I alternate between CG and CA. just doing this every quarter note. Boogie Woogie is usually eighth notes, but we can start with quarter notes. And then as we switch to F7, F and C. And then back to C and G, C and A, alternating between C and G and C and A. Then G and D, G and E for 2 measures, C and G, C and A. And I'm sure somebody out there is wondering, what do these little symbols mean between the chord symbols? No need to be ashamed. These simply mean repeat what just happened. So you'll play C7 for a measure, and then you'll keep playing C7, and then you'll keep playing C7, and then you'll keep playing C7. Now, you might wonder, what if I'm not in class with you playing bass, and I want to play C Jam Blues melody in my right hand, or I want my student to do that, and I want to play the chords in my left hand, or what if my student wants to practice that at home? So there's an app called iReal Pro that will provide bass lines and backing tracks for you. And this is kind of the industry standard right now. In jazz, I use it in all of my remote college classes to be the stand-in bass player and drummer, and if you need, piano player when you're doing something else, when your hands are otherwise occupied. So I highly recommend it. It's a one-time purchase fee. It's like $14, $15. All right. This brings us to the AAB blues. And so this is supposed to be 6 improv lessons with the blues. And notice we haven't done any improvising yet. We've been doing preparation. But the AAB blues, I think, is such a great way to start improvising with the blues. And I just keep staring at this microphone. It's so mesmerizing. Whether you're a student or a mid-intermediate level improviser, one of the most important things that we need to do when we improvise is actually listen and pay attention to ourselves as we improvise. Even if we're learning a new scale or thinking about a particular concept, it is, absolutely essential that we're totally engaged. So one of the best ways to get that kind of consciousness is to repeat yourself. And the blues is a great format for this. I don't know if you remember that I just said this, but the blues has 3 4-bar phrases, right? It's a 12-bar blues, which means that there's these 4 3-measure phrases. Math. And so what we want to do in this AAB blues is we're going to improvise something in A section, and then that needs to be conscious enough, it needs to be intentional enough that we can repeat that A section, okay? So we're going to listen to ourselves, we're going to pay attention, and we're going to repeat it. And then we're going to improvise something different and purposefully contrast. And so what I want us to do is think about, prompt ourselves and our students with some just the most basic musical contrasts: high, low, short, long, fast, slow, moving, stagnant, and select one of those and try to use that to create contrast with the A section. Now, one of the reasons why this AAB blues is such a great format is because the blues actually really lends itself in this direction. A lot of vocal blues that you hear are in this AAB format. So, oh, my baby left me. She left me yesterday. Oh, my baby left me. She left me yesterday. I hope my baby will come back someday. Right? Did you hear the AAB format there? Oh, my baby left me. She left me yesterday. Oh, my baby left me. She left me yesterday. And then something different. I hope that my baby will come back to stay, or something. I don't remember what I said. For those of you with students who like this kind of thing, this would be a great opportunity to write a couple of blues lyrics with your student. And that will get them thinking in this AAB form. But let's take this to the piano And there's a few things that we want to know and do intentionally. The first is that we can use C-Jam blues as a phrase model. Okay? So recall, C-Jam blues, we're playing only a little bit more than half of each phrase, and then we're resting for the count Basie rhythm, right? Rest, 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 rest. Rest, 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 rest. By including this kind of a phrase model with a lot of rest, A, you're making it much easier to repeat yourself, and B, you're reflecting the natural phrasing of the blues. So if I'm going to improvise my A section, I might think, right? I'm leaving that space for the count Basie rhythm so that we have this sense of give and take, call and response. To count Basie. Count Basie. Okay? So we're going to take that as a phrase model, spoken in technical terms that I wouldn't necessarily use with your students. We're only going to play about 2.5 measures of the blues. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we want to select a musical antithesis, let's say opposite. So it could be start high versus start low. Oops, that's not how you spell high or low. Could be you move up or you move down. Long notes, short notes, etc. So let's I'll demonstrate, and I'm gonna do a start high versus start low. And I'm going to purposefully really not show off here. I'm going to play the sorts of phrases that we did with our call and response. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count Basie. Count. Now I'm going to start high. A tip, a couple things to talk about here. First of all, if you're wondering what notes I'm choosing notes from the blues scale. The C blues scale, because we're in the key of C. Something I hear beginners get wrong about the blues scale is they think that they need to change blues scales as they change chords. That is not true. Blues scales go with a key center. And therefore, one of the best parts about teaching the blues is we don't have to change scales. Now, one great tip, I skipped ahead. If your improvisations are not sounding as good as you'd like them to sound, is end your phrases on C. The blues scale has a lot of great notes, but many of them can sound uncertain as ending points. So if you use that C as kind of like a magnet, everything goes back there. Everything is going to end sounding more certain, sounding more organized. Now it's your turn. I'm going to play this boogie woogie bass. And I want you to play a phrase, repeat that A phrase, and let's select go up versus go down. If your first phrase mostly goes down, then make the other one go up. Make your next phrase go up. Okay? And we're going to say count Basie together at the end of each 4-bar section so that you know when to rest. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and... Count Basie. Repeat. Count Basie. right, shake it out. Maybe you remembered your A section, maybe you didn't. Let's do another one, and let's select long notes versus short notes. If you've been playing shorter notes, hold out a nice long note at the end of your phrase. Here we go. 1, 2, again, and you're improvising. Count, B, C. Count, B, C. Count, B, C. And if students want to, they can play that count bass voicing in their left hand. But that's going to be another thing to remember to find that kind of complex 4-note shape. So you could do that for them. And this left hand, either you as the teacher can play, or you can program it into iReal Pro, select your tempo, select your settings, and it'll play a blues backing track for you. All right. Lesson number 4 is adding ornaments. So ornaments are really important in the blues because the blues is a very, very expressive, emotive way of playing music, or musical form, I should say. And so just playing the notes doesn't really cut it. So we want to practice adding ornaments. And I want to teach you about 2 and give you an activity to do with both of them. So the first ornament is a scoop. I laugh because scoop is the word that we use when our 1-year-old is doing something that he isn't. We go and we say scoop, and we pick him up and we bring him somewhere else. But that's not really the scoop that I'm referring to here. Here what I'm referring to is a grace note that's simulating a pitch bend by coming in a half step below the main note. So if you're playing, for instance, an E flat, you would use a D to scoop into that note. And there is no need to be clean, right? These are the blues. So you can have a lot of overlap between the grace note and the main note. I like to play them just in one gesture. Right? You can see that I'm kind of, in fact, what would the word be? I'm coming over the top with my wrist to play these rather than really using my finger. Right? How about the F sharp? We could use that F as a grace note to ornament the F sharp. And yes, these are typically from below, although not always, but 90% of the time they're coming from below. So we want to practice them from below. So how are we going to practice this? What I want to do is we're going to practice playing a phrase and then repeating that phrase with a grace note. And first of all, let's try it without any, with a little bit of time to think in between. So here's an example. We're gonna stay with those first few notes we studied in the blues scale, and we're gonna go. Can everybody play that? Do do de do do. Okay, so let's add that scoop beneath the E flat. Do do wa do do do. So you're gonna use your 2 on the D, your 3 on the E flat. Again, ready, and good. Let me sing you another phrase. Do do ba do do da do 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 ba do do ah. Again, we're gonna add that scoop to the E flat. Can you try it? 1, 2, ready, and do do ba do do ah. Again. Do do ba do. Good. Very nice. How about this one? We're going to go a little further in the blues scale. Do, da, 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 do, do, do. Okay, this is going to be a little trickier. We're going to add a grace note to that F sharp or G flat. And it means you're going to have to play that F twice in a row. Listen. Okay, 1, 2, ready, and do, do, ba, wa, ba, do, again, and and then where we want to go with this is we're going to trade two measure phrases with ourselves. We're going to play phrases in pairs. One improvised phrase with no grace note, and then we're going to replay that phrase, adding one or maybe two grace notes. I'm going to demonstrate here just so you can get a sense of it. So we have do, 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 then. And then I'm going to repeat that phrase, right? Okay, and then I added two grace notes there, right? Ready, and so we're accomplishing two things here, right? Again, we're working on the intentionality of phrases by having the student remember what they just played. It can be simple, but they've got to remember it. And then secondly, we're working on making it more expressive by insisting that they practice adding a grace note to each phrase. Now, another kind of ornament that's really common in the blues and students love is what I call double notes. These are double stuffed Oreos here. And double notes are notes that are added, and listen closely to this word, above the melody. That I don't know what to say other than ornament it. So I want to practice for now adding a C in the pinky above our melody notes. I'm going to actually amend that. We're going to add an A or a C. Okay. So check it out. I'm going to do that same exercise. I'm going to play a phrase without a double note. And then I'm going to play that phrase with a double note. Ready, and. So I added an A above that E flat. Let's all try it. 2, ready, and. Did a bad job playing. Let me try it again. Yeah, good. How about 1, 2, 3, listen. Now with a double note. Yeah, I'm always adding it above that E flat, but I'm trying to hold it because we can keep that same double note for multiple notes. With double note. And how about this? Now we're going to add the C. Repeat it with a double note. Okay. Now, this is maybe a little bit advanced for your students, but I just want you to know that a lot of times we add both a double note and a grace note. So we might do, watch closely here, I'll zoom in the middle for you. I'll play it down here. So you can see I'm doing a grace note here and a double note above. Or see the grace note here plus that double note above. That's how we get those double stuffed Oreos and that delicious jazz piano sound. Number 5, intensifying repetition. What would be the difference if I said, I love you? Or if I said, I really, really love you? Or if I said, I really, 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 really love you? Or I really, 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 really love you. I don't know if I got the right amount of reallys, really. There's a difference, at least in tone, right? They're all trying to say the same thing, but one is more dramatic, right? And the blues is a dramatic music. We want to create drama here, people. So we really, 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 really like using repetition in the blues. Sorry, I forgot I had this name. I kind of enjoy this. I suggest that we add in 2, 3, or 4 note repetitions to do that same thing as I really, 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 really love you. Just kind of poke that listener again and again. And so what I would do with your student here is I would suggest these 2, 3, and 4 note patterns. For instance, let's take 2 notes, F and E flat. Right? And it's almost a game of chicken. How many times can you repeat them before it gets too old? Before you really, really, really have to change? Right. And you can combine this with ornaments. What if we put our C above the F? So that's a 2-note group. Then ask your student to choose 3 notes from the blues scale. How about F, F sharp, and G, the 3 chromatic notes? 2, 3, 4. Fun, right? And again, if I wanted to, I could add a double note. And then lastly, a 4-note group. Let's take those same 3 notes and let's add a high E flat. This is going to be a little bit wild. Now, at the end, once you've done 2 notes, 3 notes, and 4 notes, you might say to your student, okay, we've got 3 phrases in the blues. I want you to play 1 phrase where you repeat 2 notes in the manner of, I really, 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 really love you. 1 phrase where you repeat 3 notes, and 1 where you repeat 4 notes. So here we go. 2 notes, 3, 4. 3 notes. 4 notes. You want to get your student thinking in this way. It's so typical of the blues, and it makes everything sound so much more intentional. All right, the last activity I want to give you is mixing in notes from the chords. So far, we've just been playing the blues scale, which is such a great place to start, but it does flatten the harmony, right? The chords are happening underneath, but they're not necessarily reflected in the notes that we're playing. in our right hand. So we can add an extra layer by mixing in notes from these chords. And I wouldn't do it all at once. I would select maybe just a couple of these chords. And I selected the ones that move away from C major. And what I'm going to suggest that you or your students do is first improvise with just an F triad. How much music can you make with just the 3 notes of an F triad? You could play them in any octave. So for instance, can you hear him adding some grace notes? And then do the same thing with the G triad. I'm literally just using the notes G, B, and D, maybe with a couple of ornaments. Etc., etc. Encourage them to be creative by giving them some of those basic musical prompts: fast, slow, loud, soft, leaps, steps. It is hard to be interesting with just 3 notes, but it can be done for, time them for a minute at a time. Okay, a minute improvising with just the 3 notes of an F triad. Then the goal is that you're going to play the C blues scale whenever you're on a C chord, but the arpeggios for the triads when you're on F7 and G7. You might ask, why not use an F7 triad? And you could, but I like to start students with less information rather than more. So it might sound like this. C blues scale, count, B, C. Now I'm going to the F triad. Now back to the blues scale, B, C, G triad. Back to the C blues scale. I'll demonstrate it one more time. Count, B, C. C, G triad. And back to the C blues scale. And that's the beginning of how we're going to get more variety out of this blues. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the blues scale. Some people have made their entire career out of playing a blues scale. But especially from a jazz perspective, there are many more options than just the blues scale. We can delve into notes of the chord. All right. Thank you so much for watching this presentation. If you're interested in getting into these things in detail, a great place to find me is at my remote class that I offer through my community college job. It's through Fullerton College. You can learn more about that via jeremysiskin.com/jazz class. You can also visit me on YouTube. I think you already have. And I do have books available, like my Jazz Piano Fundamentals series, Playing Solo Jazz Piano, and Solo Standards for Piano. If this video was a good level for you, Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 1 is going to be a great level for you. If you watched all the way, wow, thank you. I know this was a long presentation, and I guess it was good for your level if you watched. So thanks. I wish you a lot of luck with blues improvisation. And why don't you say something about pedagogy, because we're talking about pedagogy. And I just always think that seems way more fun than pedagogy is pedagogy. Thanks for watching, everybody.